alternative power supply, or yes, service supply rather. But then we'll get more details as it progresses or as time goes on from that particular story. I also have here, don't spare underperforming security chiefs. APC State Chairman tell Tinubu. And finally, Labour Party NLC, Labour Party and Nigeria Labour Congress fight over scheduled convention. That's an interesting one. You may want to look deep into that. Some Sunday Vanguard. Well, those were the major stories that trended over the weekend. Now let us see what we have for today. This is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. We have our papers here with us. The Guardian, The Punch, and Vanguard newspaper in no particular order. My name is Omobola Sandra. I'll be co-hosting you through the show. And of course, to give analysis to the stories that we're going to be treating this morning, we have Sahid Fuhad joining in via the phone line. We'll be doing this up until 8:30. We'll take a break, and by 8:40 we are back for Mainland Focus, where we'll be looking at two or more major stories off the front pages of the papers. In the meantime, good morning, Fuad. Oh, I think I lost that. Apologies for that. Yes, as we try to reconnect with Fuhad Sahid, we'll be giving analysis to the stories that we're going to be treating this morning. Yesterday was quite an interesting one on Political Roundtable. The focus was on security. Yes, Fuhad, good morning.
Good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I am well, thank you very much. How was your weekend?
Fantastic. It was great. And thank you for the surprise party. Courtesy of Barrister Curtis.
Courtesy of Barrister Curtis. I wanted to say that please, it's all Barrister Curtis. I was just, a minion that was used. But then, I mean, you deserve to be celebrated. But speaking of celebration, I thought to also bring this up. The executive governor of Plateau State, Barrister Caleb Mufwang, approved the appointment of some media aides. And notable among the two principal special advisors, that were appointed, we have Alex Sankara Ibekas, CEO of Nigeria Star News blog, and then we also have Mary Theresa Nalong of Vanguard newspaper. A very interesting one. What do you think, Fuad?
Well, my ex incidentally is a friend or a former schoolmate, and it was nice to see that she got an appointment. She's very diligent journalist, has always done her job well, and so congratulations to her. And of course, that also gives us opportunity to get some useful information from Plateau State at the drop. So congratulations to the two appointees, and we hope that they'll be able to discharge their job, their duties professionally.
I mean, there are several other, there were several other individuals who were appointed as media. Is quite a long list. I think it's number almost running into about 50 or so. It's a very, very long. You have principal, then you have senior special assistants, then you have special assistant, then you have assistants.
That's what we do here. An assistant,
and an assistant.
Also have PAs. This is what it is. But we'll definitely get in touch with Maria, like I said, former schoolmates, and so it will be useful in a lot of ways when it comes to first-hand information from Plateau State. Of course, that's an additional to all of the contacts we have from Plateau State, courtesy of ᴏᴜᴛᴜ. So a lot more to get from Plateau State.
It's okay. Well, that's for Plateau State. But then, just before we go into the major stories today, what is the fate of the 287 Kaduna abducted school children, Fuad?
It's still uncertain, and it's still unknown as we speak. We don't have any official information as to the fate of these over 200 pupils, teachers, and officials of that school. The same for others that were abducted in the last 2 weeks or so. So there's nothing for now, honestly, no information. So again, it was one of the major things we discussed on Political Roundtable yesterday. So we're just hoping that God gives the president the wisdom and the understanding on how to deal with this particular situation. While we're still groping on that, Sandra, we had a lot of conversations around security yesterday. There was a developing story. It started off from Thursday last week, and on Friday, it became very bad information came out officially that some hoodlums, let me call them hoodlums, had actually killed a number of Nigerian soldiers, some of them high-ranking soldiers, and then by Saturday officially, the whole information was out there as yesterday. That particular, I'm sure the papers have to go into it and become a ghost town, but we'll delve more into that story when we start to dig into the papers. That's also another sad situation that we have to deal with as a country. Communal crisis leading to the death of our gallant soldiers. High-ranking officials, about 16 of them.
Very, 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 very unfortunate. As there have been reports that it was more of an ambush of some sort. They went there trying to quell a particular situation, and
communal clash.
Yes,
I think the papers have it. So when we dig into it from the papers,
and the papers have it, but the back story, the background, how it all started, all of that was from yesterday. So
it's unfortunate, Sandra. 4 levels of failure that I've been able to identify from around. I think from yesterday, even on Saturday, I spoke with 2 colleagues, journalists who are on ground in Delta State, and the information I got from them is that look, nobody has been allowed into that town, at least for now. So in the videos we're seeing, I think videos are people, maybe from the military. Some of those videos have been leaked out. You understand? But the videos we're seeing shows that look, that particular community, that Oklahoma community in Ughelli, Delta State, may not be the same again. By what we're seeing, like I said, a lot of the journalists who had made attempts to get into the community were turned back. One of them that spoke with me said that look, it's a kind of Armageddon. What is happening in that place? Because again, we're talking about the lieutenant colonel, 2 captains, the commanding officer, and 12 other soldiers ambushed and murdered in the most gruesome manner. Sandra, in the most gruesome manner. Some of them, from reports, were beheaded. Some of them, bodies mutilated. Very sad situation. Again, this is coming as a result of a communal clash between 2 communities. One is Oklahoma, the other Mokoloba or something.
Thank you for
okay, let's just go into the story. You are afraid to listen to the gory, but it's unfortunately very, very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. I mean, these are people who we already entrust so much responsibilities to. You can imagine the morale of some of the men stationed at that place now. What they'll be thinking, especially as regards their fallen colleagues. But then let's go into the stories trending for today. I'll start off with the Punch newspaper as the major headline there: soldiers killing. Tinubu and Senate order manhunt for killers, and troops comb warring communities. So we have riders to that. President condemns attack, says DHQ has full authority to bring anybody responsible to justice. Senate, retired generals, others fume, demand tough actions against killers, condole with the military. So the story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. We've already started the conversation. So very quickly, Fuad, the reactions of, different stakeholders as regards what happened in Okwama, Ughelli South local government area of Delta State. Yes. What we have in the report is the president has ordered the military to apprehend the killers who were on a peace mission. I really can't come to terms with this, to the Okwama community. And in carrying out the order, it was gathered that the military combed the warring communities, arrested a lot of persons, including 3 prime suspects. As also retired army generals, civil society organizations lambasted the killers of the soldiers and called for their apprehension and speedy prosecution in order to serve as a deterrent to other criminal elements. What we have now is that very unfortunate what happened. Mutilated bodies of the soldiers were recovered by the JTF, Joint Task Force, under the supervision of General Officer Commanding 6th Division, Nigerian Army, Major General Jamal Abdulsalam at Okwama community. So what we have is that neighboring communities have been engaged in a communal land dispute since January 27. All right. And when some youths from Okoloba, that's another community now, all right, in Bomadi local government. Okoloba is in Bomadi local government, same Delta State. So, when some youths from Okoloba were said to have ambushed and killed 3 Okoma youths over an age-long land dispute in the area as they were returning from Okwagbe. So the corpses of the deceased were said to have been hidden by the assailants. Some Okoma youths reportedly ambushed an indigene of Okoloba and held him hostage. So, with this back and forth communal clash between Okoma community and then Okoloba community, yes, over this land dispute back and forth. So, the JTF swung into action trying to quell the situation. Unfortunately, on citing the JTF personnel, the aggrieved youths of Okoma opened fire on them at the waterfront and killed 2 soldiers. That's just a backdrop to what happened. All right. Some soldiers were able to escape, some were terribly wounded and all of that. So what we have now is the president has given directives as regards the cowardly offenders responsible must not go unpunished. We also have a former chief of army staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, retired, described the killing as monstrous and barbaric, and he said the culprits must be seriously dealt with. On his part, we also have Brigadier General Bashir Adewimbi called on the government to take drastic actions against the perpetrators of the crime. Also, a senator representing Delta South Senatorial District in the National Assembly, Senator Joe Onowakpo Thomas, condemned the killing and saying that the land dispute between the communities was a crisis that has been taken too far. All right. And so also we have a member of the House of Reps representing Bomadi Pantani Federal Constituency, Nicholas Mutu, also weighed in on it. Human rights lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, urged the federal government to put an end to the reprisal attacks by soldiers of the Nigerian army in Bomadi local government area of the state. In a statement, he urged the military to halt the killings of residents while calling for a full probe into the incident. He said, and I quote, "Unfortunately, some villages were attacked last night by angry soldiers. After the attack, the villages were set on fire during the nocturnal military invasion." I'm guessing this is probably a reaction to what happened. So that's, Fem Falan. So the CSOs are also saying quite a lot. But then a very, very unfortunate situation. The issue of the land dispute should be resolved. The issue of the aggrieved youths who opened fire on our military men should also be looked into. And also the military, attacking a village in reprisal probably should also be looked into. Forward, very quickly.
Well, again, this is very unfortunate. I think we have 4 levels of failure here. Mm-hmm. We are dealing with 4 levels of failure here. The first one is what I call the failure of government. Everything still goes back to the inability of government to be able to quickly resolve crisis before it becomes too big to handle. Because again, this is a crisis that has been there. It's not a new crisis, because the Okoma community is Yoruba speaking, while the Okoloba side is just speaking. So you have this Yoruba crisis on land matters. It's not only in Delta, it's other parts of the Niger Delta. Now, like I said, it's a long crisis. And this particular crisis started as far as January this year. And so what has happened then? What has been the response of the governor, for example, or the government officials in that state? What are we doing with it? Were they taking sides? Were they hands-on, really, in trying to resolve the crisis and ensure it doesn't, escalate into what we are now dealing with? So, at that level, the failure of government. The other one is the failure of community leadership. You have a situation where you ask yourself, where are the elders of this community? Where are the elders? Because most likely, this would have been done by some deranged youth. You understand what I'm saying? This crisis of fighting, ambushing, and all of these things that have been happening on this land matter would not have been done by the elders of the community. Most likely, youth, young ones, who, you have a total lack of control of the youth in most of these communities. The leaders of those communities have lost their right to be able to raise some of their youth. They don't even listen to them again. So there's no leadership at that level. We grew up in communities where when the others say stop, you stop. But now you have a situation where nobody listens to anybody. Because again, the elders have lost their moral rights, the moral standing, to be able to rein people in when things like this are happening. Because how do you put yourself together to ambush that number of military men and expect that there won't be consequences? Look, there's a sad reflection. A sad remembrance of what happened in two communities in time past. It's called Ondi and Zakidia under the Obasanjo government. Up to today, as we speak, Sandra, the two communities are not the same. And it was a similar issue too. You know, they had gone to kill policemen and then some soldiers. And the response of the military, if you go to those communities today, it's still a sad tale that Nigerians have to continue to remember. You know, so how do people come again? Because if you look at the report, these were soldiers on peacekeeping mission. They had gone there to the peace. And then, you know, there's this excuse that some of the youth communities in the youth have thought that they were from the other community, they were just these guys as soldiers. I said, no, that is not terrible. Yes, so that number of soldiers would not disguise. And then what were they thinking? For you to have ambushed that number of soldiers, you have a lieutenant colonel, you have two captains, 12 other soldiers, and in that gruesome manner, without repercussions, these repercussions are going to be there.
You were beheaded
so
for dismembered.
Some of them beheaded, some of their bodies mutilated.
Don't understand.
Gruesome murder. So what were they thinking about?
Their land? What exactly was going through their minds when they were carrying out these attacks?
That's the same question we keep asking. We have been asking ourselves since this report came out. And then the last one, the third one, Sandra, is that look, the military is overstretched. The military is overstretched. We keep getting the military involved in every security matter. Police officers that are trained, the police is supposed to be in charge of internal security. How do we get the military involved in a communal clash over land? That's purely an internal security matter that the police should have been able to handle. But unfortunately, the police is not able to handle it because they don't have the numbers. They don't even have the personnel. A lot of our policemen are still guarding VIP. They are carrying bags for the so-called VIPs and all of. They are called mandates. They are called duty of internal security. They are found wanting because they don't have the numbers, they don't have the equipment, they don't have the motivation to do their job. So that's also another problem because we keep getting our military involved, you know, in these kinds of things. Every little clash the military is involved. Every communal clash the military is involved. In the northeast, in the northwest, they are overstretched. Even in the southeast, we have the military getting involved in almost everything, which is unfortunate. And then the last one in itself is that look, we have too many issues of insecurity to deal with. And it is important that Nigerians, we start to understand that look, we just have to always embrace peace. It is better to judge than to war. Again, I'm talking about communities who are fighting over land, fighting over one or two things or the other. Yes, there could be disputes over land, there could be disputes over whatever, whether resources or something. But when these disputes are ongoing, I think it's just better that these communities understand that look, at the end of the day, it is always better to judge all, which is negotiate, have conversations, and get into jobs than to go into this kind. Look at what has happened to that community now. I doubt if that community will recover from what is happening. That particular community. From the reports we are getting, like I said, a lot of the journalists we spoke to are saying that look, they are not even allowed into that community. Now the president has given them the marching order. Fish out the culprits. And Sandra, in fishing out the culprits, innocent people are going to be at arm's length. You know that.
I just also got a message now. You know, what about the fact that arms and ammunition are also so easily accessible to non-state actors? You know, that's another angle. There. Okay, very quickly.
I'm coming there. Because Sandra, again, we need to now ask ourselves, what weapons were these people carrying to have been able to take down that large number of military men? 18
for her. 18.
Let's put it this way, Sandra. You have a lieutenant colonel, you have two captains, and you have several soldiers. God knows their rank.
They're majors.
So for you to have the capacity, Sandra, majors, some majors were also there. For you to have the capacity to take down that number. So you ask yourself, what kind of weapons were they carrying? So the question of proliferation of weapons again comes into play. And look, from some other reports we are getting, we have also a problem of empowering non-state actors. You know, we keep saying this thing. When our politicians buy weapons for them, empower them, use them as political thugs, political machinery, and all of that. In fact, in some other reports we are also getting, there's a mention of these security outfits that have been given jobs to secure our oil wells and all of that. It's been seen that in all of this, allegedly. Again, in Nigeria, we come up with a sustainable strategy to solving the problem. And so in solving one problem, we create a bigger problem. When you give billions of naira to non-state actors in the name of security contracts, Sandra, you are going to create bigger problems like this. If you understand what I'm saying. I don't want to mention names now because it's still an allegation. But when billions of naira from the state goes into the hands of non-state actors, you know, what this is what you get because they will empower themselves, they buy weapons, you know, and then of course use some of these money to intimidate others. So it's unfortunate, like I said, we have about 4 levels of failure we are dealing with in the country on this particular thing.
Yes, thank you very much. It's also important to highlight the fact that the entire Niger Delta region is saturated with sophisticated arms, and you know, and just as you rightly pointed out, that some of them will say, oh, you know, the security of the oil well, protection of our oil line pipelines, and all of that. That's some of the excuses, you know, that comes up. But then this is
these weapons are in the hands of these people. So if they have communal parties, they use against themselves.
Very unfortunate. Now, I mean, a commanding officer, we have a commanding officer, 2 majors, 1 captain, 12 soldiers, 1 civilian. Very, very unfortunate and very painful, I must say. And just as I also said earlier on, you know, these are people that, you know, you also rightly mentioned why we had to have military personnel going in, you know, community
security matter.
Exactly. What are the police? Where were the police when all of that was happening?
Back for VIP.
And these are people that we were already overburdened with, you know, the terrorism situation in the country, the insurgency situation in the country. You know, at this time now, our military definitely need a pick-me-up. They need something, a morale booster, you know, at this time now. All right, well, the story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Moving on from that one now, we also have, over the weekend, for the Lagos discounted food market, you know, commenced. I don't know, I wasn't able to, you know, partake in any of it. I don't know if anyone can call in during and give us, you know, I think it was on Sundays. You can give us, you know, some reports as regards that one. How was it? Some people there was no POS machine for them to make payments. That's what we are getting at. But then
for those who are able to get to those markets, you know, organized by the Lagos state government, and we're able to buy at discounted price. Good luck to those people. I think good one for them. I think from the reports we've got, it's well organized. It was well organized, well put together. People were just hoping that look, at least for the period, it will be at least sustained.
Yes,
and get more organized. You know, again, if there are issues with POS, we'll expect that should be
hopefully by
very
the next
simple to simple to resolve. The next market day. But again, Sandra, these are still not long-term solutions to the problems we have on ground, if you understand what I'm saying. Because you can't sustain this. The Lagos government cannot sustain this for too long. It's just a response. It's a temporary response. You know, what we have in the country at this time. So at the end of the day, we should be looking at a more sustainable way to resolving the high food pricing we have in the country. But for those that are able to buy from this market, good luck to them. I think they're also a good one from the Lagos state government for being able to put that together.
Yeah.
People are saying Obusen should do the same thing.
Please, we have shared rice for it. It's okay. We have shared rice. Please.
No. Because if you remember the COVID era, people were saying that look, anytime Lagos State does something, Ogun State just copies it.
But this time it's Lagos that copied Ogun State because we shared rice.
No. You people didn't create rice, or you didn't create market, or discounted market.
We shared rice.
No,
Lagos
are sharing rice. We are saying about creating a market where people can buy at discount. People are, Ogun State are demanding for it.
Well,
our governor to do something for the people of Ogun State.
Our governor was breaking fast some time ago last week. Maybe, you know, he must the idea would have dropped in his mind. We will shock you for that. Just
we want him to just copy this good one from the Lagos government.
Please, we are not copycats. We are originals in Ogun State. We don't copy. We will be original in our own. Just wait and see, and we'll show forward. I'm adjoining. Just be
watching. No problem.
All right. Senate warns against supplementary budget and excess loans, and that story is on page 22 of the Punch newspaper. Very quickly, for what we have on this story, I've actually been waiting for this particular conversation because because of the things that have happened in the past 2 weeks in the Senate. Yeah. So what we have now in this report is the Senate has warned the executive against increasing the budget size through a supplementary budget, advising the government to use the excess savings that are expected to be made from the recent depreciation of the naira to fund the deficit. And this is coming against, the backdrop of depreciation of naira against dollar from 900 per dollar to now 1,500 naira per dollar. So, as we all know, the National Assembly in December moved the 2024 budget benchmark, the exchange rates, from 750 to 800. And the reasons that were given at that time by the Committee on Appropriation, the chairman, Senator Ademola Solomon, explained that the current price of the dollar at the black market is 1,200 or 1,300. So it is between 950 and 1,000. And we have a budget which was pegged at 750. So if you look at the gap, you realize that has covered a lot of gaps already. Again, we did some external consultations, most especially in the area of oil benchmark and petroleum resources. If we had gone in that line, we would have pegged it at about 850 to 900. So nobody would think we want to increase the budget for an ulterior motive. Well, that one is not you that will tell us what we are thinking. But then, so you can see that it necessitated the action for as regards the economic realities. But then, following the depreciation of the naira from 900 to over 1,500 now, the Senate is advising the federal government against increasing the budget size, saying this move could worsen the country's already high inflation. Forward, our inflation at this time now is 31.7, the worst we have ever had in 28 years. 31.7%. That is our inflation now. So, if our executive, which is just about 2-3 months into this new budget, into the 2024 appropriation budget, if we're already discussing supplementary budget now, which means, of course, where we're going to get the money and all of that. So what are your thoughts from the angle of the Senate and also the executive, because they need money to be able to fund their operations as well?
This is the time for the Senate to endear themselves with Nigeria. This is a Senate that has a serious credibility issue now amongst Nigeria. So I think making this statement is just to, show some level of solidarity with ordinary Nigerians when it comes to prudent management of public resources. So basically, hey, don't come with us to us for any supplementary budget. More like trying to show that indeed they are also going to be very accountable and they're going to do their job to ensure that, look, there are no wastages. Even though the level of wastages that we're seeing from the appropriation have been issued does not show any sincere intention from our National Assembly members. So, but again, the issue of budget deficit standard, yes, we understand what Senator Adeola is saying after the fact that there was a benchmark, the dollar benchmark and the crude oil benchmark has shown that, look, there's enough now that the government can work with to take care of the deficit. But, the reality of the budget deficit again will be dependent on how well we are able to manage our oil resources. A lot of the things we are hoping to be able to fund without borrowing will be coming from how well we are able to manage our oil resources, especially when it comes to oil. You understand what I'm saying? So, are we going to be able to produce enough? Are we going to be able to fight oil theft and all of those things? Again, how well are we going to be able to manage our economy? My prediction, my suspect suspicion, Sandra, is that, look, there will still be a supplementary budget. Don't be. think by whatever anybody thinks.
We're saving money. No, not saving money. We're making money, don't you think? Because if they pegged, if the benchmark was 800 naira per dollar in the 2024 appropriation bill, the dollar is now selling at 1,500. That differential, it should count to a certain extent.
But that will be dependent on what you are able to make eventually. Standard. Before you begin to talk about the dollar benchmark, you should ask yourself, would you be able to make enough first before you now begin to look at whether you have excess or not? Your calculation on excesses is determined or dependent on what you are able to make. You understand what I'm saying?
Do we even have crude to sell? So we can make.
Are we going to have enough? Will we meet our oil, quota? Those are the issues. Those are the issues because as it is, we are still not meeting up our quota. You understand what I'm saying? That's why I said that. Look, see, most of what we are hoping to fund will be coming from production of oil. Should also focus on that side. Are we going to be able to produce enough to now raise enough money before we now begin to talk about the rate of dollars or not when it comes to budget deficit? Because again, whether we like it or not, a large part of that budget is dependent on some borrowing too. There's a borrowing plan to fund the budget. But I know that eventually the supplementary budget will come. And let me tell you, if the supplementary budget comes, that also captures the interest of the National Assembly, they're going to keep quiet on it. You don't understand? If the government executively presents a supplementary budget now, and in the budget, it begins to take care of some personal needs of the National Assembly members, are they not going to sign up on it? So I just think that, look, they issued this statement again as a result of the backlash. And a lot of things Nigerians have been saying about them from, they are very embarrassing stories in the last 1 week. So let's get people on our side again to say that, look, we're not going to entertain any form of misappropriation of funds or repatriation of funds, and that we indeed committed to prudent and judicious support to government. But it's easier said than done, Sandra. We'll wait to see whether there will be a supplementary budget. But I know it will definitely come.
Yeah, I mean the thought of a supplementary budget when just recently we're still talking about a padding controversy.
There's no padding.
Well, it's okay. It's all right, Ford.
They didn't pad. It's just that the monies we are talking about had no clear description onto anything. You can't tie them to anything.
Okay.
Is that what they call padding?
Ford.
I'm just asking.
I'll pray for you in my closet. All right, the story is on page 22 of the Punch newspaper. We have an appropriation bill where 3 trillion thereabout is not attributed to any project per se. Specific project per se. So maybe it's something is miscellaneous. For when you have budget, you have miscellaneous.
So these ones are not even. They say these are for government project enterprises at some establishments, INET, blah blah blah, and all of that. But what we are saying is that, look, we should have a breakdown. Let's have a breakdown. Up to now, Sandra, we're even talking about those ones. The over 300 billion, 344 billion budgeted for the National Assembly. There's no breakdown. There's no breakdown. Every time we just give a lump sum to the National Assembly without any breakdown. How do they appropriate? How do they spend it? What do they spend it on? Nobody knows.
Well, the story is on page 22. Above the masthead of the Punch, we have here Sanu Nasu vow to ground varsities. Government feigns ignorance. And that is on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. So, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, and Non-Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities and Allied Institutions, NASU, will commence a nationwide strike today to protest their withheld 4-month salary. So sometime in sometime in 2022, Fuad, remember the very long ASU strike? And SANU and NASU joined that strike 2 months into the strike, okay? And recently, then President Muhammadu Buhari invoked a no work, no pay policy, saying that you didn't work, so I'm not going to pay you. But then President Tinubu recently said, we're going to pay ASU 4 months out of the withheld salaries. Thereby, neglecting other unions that were also a part of, that particular scenario. So SANU and NASU now, they said they had written letters to the Ministry of Education. They wrote to the President. They wrote through the Secretary General of the Federation, Fᴜᴜ Aᴊɪṕᴜ, what about us? What about us? What about us? Okay. And they didn't get anything. There was no response. There was nothing. And so they are going on a 7-day warning strikes starting today. That is the report.
I'm hoping that this government would not also want to have this record of disruptions in our tertiary institutions. Again, there are too many bad records already that have been set. I must tell you, son, that this is what it is, whether anybody likes it or not. And I think that they would not want to add this particular record to all of the very negative records that this government has been putting together, at least in the last 10 months or so. I think this one should be one of the low-hanging fruits for them. This is something that can be quickly resolved, if you understand what I'm saying, so that at least we have some level of stability. It would be nice to have a President Bola Ahmed Tinubu government for 4 years without any disruptions in the university or the tertiary institution sector, if you understand what I'm saying. That would be a very good record, that, look, at least for 4 years, there was no disruption. We might have issues, but we ensure that, look, our lecturers are always fast and they're always at work. All of these things just require some openness, or some level of openness. Give and take here and there. Basically, how much are you owing these guys? How do you want to pay? What do you want to pay? I'm sure negotiations can actually resolve this one. But to feign ignorance or just keep quiet as if nothing has happened is the reason why we're going to have another round of disruption. We have students who are already spending 6 years standard for a 4-year course. And then if this one starts again, it's unfortunate to now put our students through this round of another disruption. So I'm hoping that the presidency and this government would quickly step into this and resolve the issue so that we can avert this avoidable strike that is going to come. Because senior staff is a one strike. It's as good as still shutting down the university. A lot of them are the lecturers who teach the students. So if they're not going to class, then what's the university open for?
That's right. Well, as it is now, the two unions, the strike has commenced started today, and what we are getting now is that there seems not to be any form of attention being given, by the federal government now. That's what we're getting. The federal government is feigning ignorance, despite the several letters that they have written. All right, but then you are listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Trends in the Papers, and we're just through with the Punch newspaper. I'm moving on now to The Guardian newspaper. Very quickly, big story here that, affected all Nigerians, some parts of West Africa and some parts of South Africa on Friday. Internet outage. Trade payments suffer as service disruption may linger until April. That's the report that we're getting now. So the story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. So apparently, for the fact that we can even do any work at all now,
we are even lucky here in Nigeria.
Yes, is the fact that Nigeria is even one of the lowest,
affected.
Yes. Affected, the lowest countries affected. Côte d'Ivoire has it worse because, of course, the cut happened right underneath the sea in Abidjan, in Côte d'Ivoire. Exactly. But then we have Liberia, we have Benin, Gabon, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, you have South Africa, and Namibia, some other countries, that were affected by this very unfortunate situation. So, riders to that story, 90% of data traffic via submarine cables affected. 13 African countries, internet download speed drops significantly. Banks, telcos count losses as failed payments spike. Companies explore satellite operations to sustain operations. So we're currently on alternative, source at this moment now, which can't last for so long. So I think all hands are on deck to try to see what they can do as regards the subsea cables. So individuals and businesses who are battling snail speed or completely unavailable internet may have to bear with the crisis for much more time than expected, as the full restoration of services is not feasible until towards the end of April. And that's what we have. So I think we can just count our blessings and name them one by one.
Yeah, we're not
yes.
Terribly affected by that, because again, what we are hearing that they would have to bring these cables from under the bed of the sea for repair work, and that might take some time. I think there are contractors who be handling the repair works. So at least it's good that we're able to still do one or two things. So we are not that affected. I think Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire is the worst affected, worst hit by this, because this happened just off their coast. But again, like you said, at least it's good that Nigeria is not that badly affected, even though there are disruptions. So there's just anchor. Although people have been talking about satellite options, and all of those kind of
that's what some of them have been working with. I think one of the providers, Mean One, gave a statement over the weekend that that's what they had to resort to at this time now. But I'm sorry, but I just have to be so thankful. Nigeria is Nigeria, South Africa, and one other country they are the three low impact ones. We have Togo, Cameroon, Gabon, Niger, Namibia, medium impact. High impact, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Benin, Liberia, high impact, and severe impact, Ivory Coast. Yes, those are the countries affected by the internet outage. Well,
I'm sure it will be. These are private organizations who take, service, delivery very serious. If you understand what I'm saying, I'm sure that they're already on top of it. They're already doing the needful, and the timeline for April, I'm very sure about. We'll get full normal. When it comes to internet services, like I said, these are private organizations that will take service delivery very serious. Unlike people I don't want to mention.
No. Let's go on. Don't mention. All right, on the front page of Guardian, we also have here Senate and Reps hold secret, quote and unquote, hearing on new student loan bill. Will it or will it not? But I don't know why it's secret, but what we have is 4 days after the president transmitted letters to the Senate and the House of Reps seeking repeal and reenactment of the student loan bill. The National Assembly is set to hold a public hearing on the proposed legislation. But then what we have now is the two legislative chambers would hold a joint public hearing today. That's what we have. I don't know why the secret, quote and unquote, is in the headline, but then there it is. Still on this student.
I told you that there are political considerations to this thing, but don't worry. Some of these things we just look at it from the surface, but when it comes to very simple matters like this, we put tribalism, we put politics into what's the big deal about a student loan bill, or coming up with a student loan arrangement. Engage stakeholders who understand how these things work. But I told you that when the government also announced that they were expanding to young people in certain institutions, to also technical and vocational skill students, I knew that we're already getting into trouble with this particular student loan arrangement. But we'll wait to see whether that's secret or not. I mean, so one day they will unveil the masquerade. I think that one day will be one day. They go one will know what we're dealing with on this student loan matter.
Well, moving along very quickly, also we have here Northern leaders and Serap seek probe of 3.7 trillion naira budget padding allegation. That's on page 3 for those who are heavily invested in that particular conversation. Also have here, cutting governance cost is beyond Oronsaye report. That's on page 16. It's an editorial of the Guardian.
I agree.
Yeah. And finally from the Guardian, Katsina and Zamfara governors knocked for boycotting security meeting. I don't know who else should be there, but then the story is on page 9.
You should be the first person there. The first people sitting down there.
I don't know who else.
Yeah,
but it's okay. It's all right. But then the story is on page 9 of the Guardian newspaper. We have just a few minutes left, so we'll just run through the major headlines on the front page of Vanguard newspaper. It is still mainland 98.3 FM. Vanguard, Delta killings, troops lay siege to Okwama, raise more houses. There we now have it too. Forward. Outrage trails murder soldiers.
We have to find the work and
exactly. Yeah.
We sympathize with the family of our gallant soldier, but again, even in a war situation, there are rules of engagement. So that's more that I can say on that.
Thank you, because it is a very, very delicate and sensitive, situation.
Matter.
Yeah. Military deploys armored vehicles to Bamadi creeks. Have authorized military to fish out perpetrators, says President. It's barbaric and unacceptable, says Peter Obi. It's despicable, says Governor Oborevori. Act totally unacceptable, says Pandef. We also have officers sacrifices shall not be in vain. Northern senators tell CDS, that's Chief of Defense Staff. Urobo youths urge probe. Ijaw youths condemn killings. The story is on page 5 of Vanguard.
Where are the Urobo elders? Where are the Ijaw elders? When all of these guys are going on?
Traditional rulers as well.
Where were they? We are not able to rein in these people. And now look at what we have. Very avoidable. Very sad situation.
Very, very. All right. Well, that's the major headline on the front page of Vanguard, and the story is on page 5 of Vanguard. I also have here why it's difficult to market Nigeria globally. That story is on page 9. I think I know why. Fuad, can you give me one?
The why is on the paper. The why is everywhere.
It's the major headline on the front page of all the papers this morning already. Very unfortunate situation, Fuad. But then that story is on page 9. Now, politics. Edo Guba, APC to unveil deputy governor candidate today. That's on page 28. We also have Ondo, 2024. APC leaders kick against commercialization of Guba primary. That one is on page 10.
It will be commercialized. They are even going to be the ones to benefit from the commercialization. You know how it's done now. They will spend one another. It's just what it is. The person with the deepest pocket.
All right.
The race of the money bag.
And finally, Nigeria tightens grip on second spot medals table at the African Games currently holding in Accra, Ghana. Yes, I think we also need to put that in spotlight. It's not just the sad stories. Yes, Egypt is ahead, but Nigeria is very closely second. We've been doing quite well thus far. So,
I'm happy that we're ahead of South Africa
and Ghana
on the medal table.
The host country.
We've been beating Ghana Blue Black, especially in the combat sport.
So did you watch the arm wrestling match? It was very
easy for the Nigerian lady.
It was interesting.
Okay.
That's what the Yoruba will say if you go. But then that's all we can take this morning on Trends in the Papers. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where you, our dear listener, you get to be a part of the conversation. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the soft sounds of 98.3 Mainland FM. Easy listening wherever, whenever.